Louis Theroux, Inside the Manosphere, is out on Netflix. New documentary feature from well-known documentary filmmaker Louis Theroux. This time he tackles the topic of the so-called manosphere. As explained in his own words, it's a part of the internet community which, generally speaking, revolves around men. Male influencers for male audiences, promoting men's well-being and health and lifestyle choices, often touching on things like fitness, finance, relationships. Now, a lot of the manosphere is somewhat harmless or even beneficial, as you could sort of guess from the topics that they touch on. But there are fringe elements which go to the extreme in promoting misogynist, racist, xenophobic views, conspiracy theories and disinformation, and all around being a bad influence on the youth of today. In the doc, Louis manages to gain access to several of these famous figures and spend some time with them, filming and talking to them about what they do and how they think. Now, I think the film's strength is also its weakness, depending on how you look at it, because it isn't really some great piece of investigative journalism. Louis doesn't go deep on the background of these people. He doesn't uncover anything super secret, doesn't blow up a giant conspiracy. Probably the closest thing to that is revealing how most, if not all, of these toxic influencers grew up without a healthy male role model in the household, which might explain their now twisted, warped views on life and masculinity. But aside from that, it's really just Thoreau asking simple questions and letting these dudes talk. And boy, do they talk. I mean, it's clear that they all love the spotlight and the sound of their own voices, and essentially any amount of rope he gives them, they happily hang themselves with. They babble on, exposing themselves essentially, and proving how hypocritical, narrow-minded, and often plain stupid they are. I loved all the bits where where they start from one position, and by the end of their little speeches and tirades, end up almost advocating something opposite without realizing it, or in some cases proudly boasting about the contradiction. One example being the guy who is a promoter and beneficiary of OnlyFans models, while at the same time saying they're disgusting and nobody should waste time on them. Uh, the whole thing made me feel three things, really. One, I was amused by the stupidity on display. Two, I was fascinated by how obvious it becomes on a slightly closer look that these guys don't do any of this for fun or out of the kindness of their hearts. They are grifters who make money on every person they manage to convince to listen to them. And three, I was depressed with the realization of how many people follow their advice and adopt their worldviews without too much critical thinking. And not just young people, although they would be the most susceptible, but I've come to realize I have a good friend of mine who I was vaguely aware had some contact with the Manosphere before. And while I was watching this film, I slowly realized that every single weird thing, worldview, opinion, factoid that he's shared with me with full confidence in the past 2 years or so is directly parroted from these influencers. Everything comes from them, word for word in some cases. It is terrifying. So, yeah, I think it's worth checking out. I think mainly for people interested in the subject from the outside in and wanting to get a glimpse of what to protect themselves and their children from. Because sadly, I think neither the fans of these bozos nor the bozos themselves will be swayed by anything shown here. I suspect the subjects of this documentary would mostly look at it and view it as a win because it gives them some reach. People talk about them. They wouldn't be capable of understanding they look like fools, and ultimately, sadly, even if they did, it probably won't limit their influence. Scary, to be sure.